Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on our YouTube account, and I took your advice and your feedback from the top 5 list that we did for the Light Bears, and this list is going to exclude our Awakened heroes. So in the Mauler faction, we know this is a faction that really could use a lot of love. Not seeing a lot of heroes, especially predominantly from the new heroes we've seen within the Mauler faction, not really making a big difference. So let's break down the top 5 heroes to build in this faction. That does not include the Awakened ones, starting with number 1, which is Naruko. Now, Naruko, of course, when we look at the tiny tank, is just absolutely crazy looking at Nadia. The build out of this hero ultimately does a significant amount of damage. We're seeing her in a lot of different formations with the pet. So she actually has Nadia, does a defense reduction, does a considerable amount of healing, does a considerable amount of shielding. The hero overall for the faction can literally carry, especially if you do pick up this hero early game. Naruko will do incredibly well. Even looking further into, the end game, the Cursed Realm Nightmare Corridor, Naruko is still there, even looking Treasure Scramble. Again, we are seeing the hero there. Such an important hero. Now, the optimal build in this actually goes to a 40 signature item. So, of course, right here, it is going to stack more layers, which is good because of the defense reduction. Now, we know historically, looking at Warwick, looking at a couple of heroes that had a defense reduction, it makes a really big difference. And of course, this is going to allow her to amplify the damage reduction by actually reducing it effectively more times, giving you more damage that the rest of the team can put out. And then, of course, 9 of 9 furniture, very important in here. When takes fatal damage, she spends 3 growth stacks and becomes immune to damage. So your tank isn't going to die, not like the Awakened version of Lucius that is just going to fall over. And of course, the engraving, we're looking at a 61 in here. You can see I only ever build out to a 38. But this 61 is what you're looking for to get in here. And that is because of the Venom spray that we have right there from Nadia. And again, for every death, for every 3 summon entities, Nadia will spray 3 times instead of her normal attack, which again can do that defense reduction. Very, very cool hero. Now looking at our second hero, and again, the non-awakened, second one is Anastud. Now overall, not seeing a lot of utility, but when you come to the tower, when you look overall, this is the next hero in the faction that does incredibly well. Now a 30967 is the build on her. So getting that plus 30 signature item makes a big difference. Getting that 9 of 9 furniture, which of course, this is the big thing why players have built this hero. It is the Brawler's protection. So it is the damage mitigation factor that this hero provides. And again, looking a little bit earlier game, works pretty well, but as you get further, as you do get her built out, it will work even better. Then, of course, when it comes to the engraving, we are looking at a 67. Now, you can see here, I also do not have this hero up to the 60, but this increases the damage reduction in the health regeneration. Now, of course, like I said earlier, that is the only reason why players were running Anastud, is not only does a little bit of damage, but also for the massive damage reduction that she does. Now, of course, this kind of once upon a time did run hand in hand with that Awakened version of Brutus, making it work incredibly well. Still seen, again, sometimes in some niche formations, but ultimately, guys, the sword from like Monster Hunter style, it is awesome to see. Falling in at number 2 is Anastud. Now, number 3, to a surprise, our oldie but our goodie, which is Scag. Now, there are a lot of formations, including a couple invade teams. We're hoping that with the rise or essentially the release of the new hero that we had, we would see an invade team again from the Light Bears, the Dancers, but overall not seeing it at all, unfortunately. But Scag, as far as the Mauler faction itself, comes in at number 3, still having a lot of utility, again, in a couple different places. If you're running a comp that is running the Awakened version of Brutus, a lot of times you will still see Scag there. If you look at Frampton, if you look at some of those teams, Scag is still prevalent. Now, of course, the one in this is the plus 20 signature item, which makes a big difference. Energy that is recovered while injured is increased by 50%. And of course, the 9 of 9 furniture. This is the big reason why anyone builds up Scag. You don't need the engraving on him. You could get a little bit of more survivability out of there, but ultimately the 3 of 9 and the 9 of 9 ultimately allied heroes recover 100 energy points for after every 3 seconds in the enemy half of the battlefield. So if they're on the enemy side, like an invade team is, they're getting 100 energy every 3 seconds, which is huge. Ultimate abilities are going to trigger just that much faster when you do get to that side. So that is the reason why Scag is coming in at number 3. The number 4, this used to be one of the absolute primary heroes that we had within AFK Arena. Kren came about the time that we seen the release of Raku, and they were run both together and also independently which did incredibly well. We've seen Kren, and Kren still does dominate when it comes to the Mauler Tower, even being an older hero. A lot of utility with him and a lot of crowd control. If you can get him to ult, majority of the time you can lock it down and he will ult so fast that you can actually continue ulting by the time the ult ends. With the knockback, he ults a second time, which is kind of crazy. Plus, he does have a knockback, and you can amplify his damage with the miners that we have in the back. Now, Kren, of course, is a plus 30 signature item. Normal attack is enchanted after using one normal attack. So you get one normal. The second one is going to be the enchanted attack or the enhanced attack. Sorry about that. And then the 9 of 9 is huge. When the skill Enshrouding Bomb is used, an additional smoke bomb is thrown in the area with the most enemies. This, of course, is going to increase the survivability of your heroes themselves, especially if, again, he's in a formation where you have that invade. This is going to make a big difference with the invade. And then, of course, we are taking him to a 33. Now, because of the damage, because of that factor, we did build him up to a 60, but ultimately the 33, these little guys, the old pal, each time a landmine explodes, Kren recovers 100 energy. Now, when you start battle, they actually show up on the enemy side. When he knocks them back, he is going to get an energy regeneration. This is the reason why when they're in that backside of the battlefield, by the time that he actually gets to ult again, or by the time the first ult ends, he will already be ulting again. And it kind of creates this vicious cycle with going through and just continuously ulting and kind of locking everyone in the back row. Now, we've seen this traditionally in the Cursed Realm, when the Cursed Realm was really huge. When they first came out, Kren was actually locked down. Then we've seen Kren run a lot of times with Odin, which again looked and worked incredibly well because if a hero got out of the backside, Odin would actually port them back. And again, systematically or synergy-wise, it was kind of crazy how it worked. And it did work incredibly well. But Kren, again, is a hero that is slowly dropping down due to the combat rating. But overall, Mauler faction specific, coming in at number 4. And the final one that we're going to use in here, and again, looking at the faction, this one, of course, is going to be Scarra. Now, if you're looking at the 5-pull, which again, once upon a time used to be absolutely devastating to everyone use the 5-pull, it was the primary one, but there are still some scenarios and some situations where Scag is still coming in niche. He is still being used in a couple different places where you're pulling all your enemies together. If you need to really provide some of that crowd control, we are still seeing him every now and then kind of built. Now, overall for him, plus 30 signature item is a good build on there. 3 of 9 furniture is really all that you need when it comes to this one. If you're building him any higher, and I did build him a little bit higher because of the damage factor. Now, when we had Dark Namora in the Twisted Realm and also the Cursed Realm when Dark Namora was in there, he really did make a big difference because he'd go ahead and put everyone together. As of today, again, not really a huge hero to be built. But when you break down kind of the rest of the faction, when you look at utility, most of them, which pretty much all of them, are not used anywhere, unfortunately. Even looking at, the bigger builds that we have, even up here with Entendre not being used anywhere outside of the tower as it is right now. But looking at a lot of one, you could even kind of put a place or possibility when it comes to Crescio, again, because Crescio is kind of a one-off niche where we're using them in the Nightmare Corridor, but there's only really one formation that he is being run in when it comes to utility-wise, and when it comes to outside of that formation, not a lot of utility within the faction, which I am hoping, and a lot of rumors are kind of going around about the awakened version of Nemitsu that could possibly coming to the faction. We also had a conversation today about possibly seeing like an awakened version of Scag, which I think would be pretty cool. We're going to have to see exactly what does become of this and what awakened hero we are getting next. So, all right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.